You have to talk to people beyond your comfort zone or beyond your direct network. And especially in the education space, I think overall people really are passionate about education, that they want to help you, so they're always eager to connect you with more people that like the education space. So it's always good to get out there and have those conversations to see if it's a viable product, a viable idea, if someone's going to be willing to buy it beyond your like close network of friends.
Hey everyone, my name's Kyle Walgren, and this is another episode of the Business of Education. Today we have a startup founder that's taking the world of ed tech on by storm. Lissy Giacomán is the CEO and founder of a company called Vinco, a company that is an education startup that helps companies in Latin America offer education as a job benefit. This new spin is taking things by a whole new approach, and we'd love to hear more about it. Lissy, welcome to the show.
Thank you, Kyle, for the invitation. Great to be here.
Thank you for jumping on. My goal is always to try and help bring networks together and spread awareness around people making an impact in the ed tech space. It's a hard hill to climb, and I just feel like as many people as we can tell about it, as often as we can, brings value to everybody. You most recently were voted one of the top 100 entrepreneurs in Latin America by Bloomberg. Why don't you tell us about that? And then we'll go into the company that you run. That's got to be an amazing accolade.
Yeah, I mean, it's always good to hear those types of news. Honestly, the key thing is because it helps us get a little bit more exposure about what we're doing. And I think it's great that, for example, even for the podcast, it's quite international, no? Where today we're talking a little bit more about Latin America in specific.
That's so awesome. The company you're building, like I mentioned earlier, helps bring education as a company benefit. Dive into that a little bit about it.
Yes. So what we do is we make it easy for large corporations to be able to support their operational base, thinking about the frontline workers, the cashier, the mechanics, the drivers, making it as easy as possible for the large corporations to support them with their studies, no, so that they can get their high school, their college degree, learn English language, which is really relevant in Mexico, or any other skills, no. So we subsidize the whole administrative component, connecting employees with the different educational opportunities. And the way the model works is the company helps give the benefit, sponsor the education of the employee, and our business model works through a revenue share with our educational partners. So we don't create content. We think there's so many great institutions out there creating more and better content that it's our role to go and find which ones are the best ones, no, and be able to connect them with them.
That's awesome. How long ago did you come up with this concept, and what kind of traction have you gotten so far?
Yeah, so we're 3 years in now. We're already working with some of the largest corporations in Mexico. Some exciting news is, for example, last year we started working with Walmart. They're the largest employer in Mexico. We're also working with companies like Oxxo, 7-Eleven, which are convenience store chains, airlines. So we have some of every type of industry, which helps because our model is so flexible and the academic offering is flexible in the way that we can connect to different educational opportunities regardless of what's the workforce need, no? And right now we have over 40,000 employees currently part of
Wow.
our community that we're helping with selecting a program and studying.
That's amazing. What made you want to do something like this? How'd you come up with the concept?
Yeah, I mean, for me and my two co-founders, we're three female co-founders. The education has always been very important for us. We've been always super grateful of the academic opportunities that we've had. That we've always had kind of in the back of our heads that we wanted to build something to help more people be able to connect with these opportunities. No, I did for a while sold my soul for into the consulting world. I was working at BCG for a few years, and when COVID hit, I started seeing two key things. No, on the one hand, the large corporations that I was working with then, which are currently some of our clients as well, they were having issues with rotation with their own employees. No, the cashier usually stays at the company for 2 to 3 months. That we started exploring this concept as in like, if you can help them pay for their high school degree or their college degree, they'll stay at the company for 2, 3, or 4 years. No, so there's a huge gain from that. But then on the other hand, on the educational institution front, during COVID, I mean, there was a huge technological adoption. Before, a mechanic would have to go to even their work might be far and they would travel to work for like 2 hours. And
Oh,
then
wow.
imagine having to travel to go to the high school or the college to get your degree. That technology and having much more programs online and flexible has made it a lot easier for them to take advantage of these types of courses and take their courses online.
So somebody that has not spent much time in Mexico, I think my entire Mexico travel plan has been 24 hours in Mexico City. So I'm not super savvy on the entire adoption of technology, infrastructure, anything like that. But is it pretty easy for everybody in Mexico to have access to internet? Where are you guys at with infrastructure and internet across the or across Mexico? Sorry.
To be honest, before COVID, I don't think something like Vinco could happen. No, COVID really forced companies to, no matter the level within the company, all employees had to adopt all different types of technology. No, and I think that on one hand, and on the other hand, the government and different private initiatives realizing the importance of investing a lot more in infrastructure so that there's like hubs throughout the cities where they can go and take their tests or they can use a computer if they don't have it at home. It really changed everything and the technological adoption.
So that's super interesting. COVID's kind of helped. It helped my business as well, and I know lots of founders that say that they wouldn't have a company without COVID. But it also created like a false narrative of how quick technology was going to grow, and it's also hurt a lot of companies. What are some of the things that you've learned after leaving the COVID era? That you weren't expecting to change after coming out of COVID that you guys are dealing with now?
Yes, well, definitely on I mean, one front, the technological adoption was here to stay, no, but on the other hand, after COVID, a lot of what we've seen as well is like, well, during COVID there was a lot of confusion as to like what's going on and how can companies prioritize resources. Now a lot of the companies and especially in Mexico, there's a lot of relevant news about like nearshoring and like becoming even more competitive to find talent. That has also really helped us and has worked in our favor. Where now that things have become a lot more stable again, companies realize that there's this war for talent that became even stronger during COVID, but was here to stay. Where they've been looking towards new ways to be able to attract and retain employees beyond just like paying them more. No.
I've heard a lot of people that I've talked to over the last several months talk about, hiring third party talent out of Mexico. So the nearshore uh, development growth is definitely taking off because I hear about it all the time. Did you guys develop your program locally, or how'd you guys go about building your program to start with?
Yeah, and for example, now that you mentioned that, that has happened a lot more towards like mid senior levels, where United States companies have hired people working in Mexico, and the truth is that salaries are way lower, so it's cheaper as well for US companies. But then that puts even more pressure within Mexico for talent, thinking about mid managers and then to like the entry level, no, where if the mid managers to senior are leaving and go working abroad, how can we make it so that there's like enough talent to cover the different needs that we have as a company, no?
That makes a lot of sense. How are you seeing the adoption from some of these bigger companies, and how are they accepting it? Offering a program like this, and what kind of programs are you offering to your users?
Yes. So you had asked about like creating the programs. In the end, we don't create any programs ourselves. We connect with different educational institutions. This goes from even like middle school, high school, college, master's
Interesting.
degrees. There's a lot of language learning. And then there are a lot of like shorter courses that could be from like soft skills or like programming skills. In the end, we become this one-stop shop of education where we have all different types of programs that depends on what the employee and the company needs based on their strategy. Uh, and regarding the reception of companies, it always the first clients are always the hardest to get, but this is a trend that we are seeing in different parts of the world, no? And especially in the US, where the education as a benefit became much more permeated, where you saw companies like McDonald's, Starbucks, Walmart's becoming some of the first companies doing that. All of these companies are in Mexico as well, and they've seen the results in the US that it's like, okay, we definitely need to implement something like that in Mexico as well. So I think this closeness to the US, in the end, it also helps us that international companies promote this type of benefits that now the local companies also do it, no?
That makes a lot of sense. I like the idea of it. You know, I moved to the United States from Canada, so I'm still adapting to like this huge push for companies offering health benefits. Everybody, you know, at home just had health benefits. So I've, you know, moving to the U.S., I've really had to learn how companies provide health benefits as a benefit to come work for those companies. But I really like the idea of education as a benefit as well. I think that, you know, a lot of places, especially here in the US, we're finding that people are less hireable because, you know, things like literacy skills or, you know, other educational gaps in those markets. So being able to provide that as a resource makes a lot of sense from us. What are some of you'd mentioned finding your early clients are always the hardest. What are some of the hurdles that you've had to overcome that you think would be valuable lessons for new ed tech founders coming into the market?
Yeah, and I think, I mean, mostly because on the one hand, our focus has been with like the Fortune 100 companies, no, the largest companies. So I mean, it's always a slower process with large corporations than it is to get like a startup on board, no. But I think some of the key learnings is that, especially in corporations of that size, you really need more than one person to really buy what you're doing. And initially, it was like, okay, we're selling like educational opportunities and benefits, so let's connect with like HR teams. But in the end, the rotational component, the employee rotation, it hurts the like operations team, and it also helps the finance team and the strategy team. So it's how to get that buy-in within like the organization beyond the HR teams, no, and that has made a huge difference. So it's always been how can we find ways to connect with the other teams so they also adopt the education as a benefit, and they can also help us promote it out in the fields, not out in the store. The HR manager is not in at the Walmart store all day because they're in charge of like so many stores. That the store manager is there, and you want them to have that buy-in so they can help you promote and and motivate the employees to take advantage of the benefit and enroll.
That's amazing. what so my company does ed tech sales direct to the education district. So we sell into schools. We have very long sales cycles. What are you seeing for sales cycles within this selling to those top Fortune 100 teams? Are they long, or, you know, what kind of challenges are you seeing with those sales cycles?
I would say the first year they were long. I think now what really helps also is that when you have one company in one industry, it makes it a lot easier to convince other companies in that same industry. And this happens a lot to us in, for example, like manufacturing plants. In Mexico, there are like different cities and different zones in the country where there's like a bunch of manufacturing plants, and there's a and since there's so many, there's a lot of competition within one area. So the fact that the plant right across the street is helping employees get their high school or their college degree, then I have to do something similar as well so that I can be competitive. And that's something that has really helped us fasten the cycle. As soon as we were able to get like one big company from different industries convince other companies from similar industries to form part of the program as well.
That's super interesting. Right now, are you currently only operating in the U.S.? Have you expanded, or sorry, in Mexico? Have you expanded outside of Mexico at all yet?
We are there's still a huge, I mean, Mexico is a big country and there's still a huge market. So we have focused a lot in Mexico. We have launched in different countries like Colombia, Peru, Costa Rica, that but this has been mostly driven through like some of the larger corporations that we work with in Mexico. They have also operations elsewhere, and they're like, hey, I also want to launch in these countries. And it's relatively easy, since the programs that we have, they're all in Spanish. So I mean, in Costa Rica and Peru and Colombia, they also look for Spanish programs. But then there are some like particular things that we would need to dive into regarding like different company policies and like government fiscal policies and all those things, no?
No, that makes a lot of sense. One of the things that I noticed right away that you'd accomplished was something that I've been denied of 2 years in a row. You guys, in 2022, you made the GSV Cup Elite 200. That's a feat in itself. Walk us through that. There's a lot of founders that would love to get, first past that first stage of screening to the Elite 200 and then go on to be top three, of course. But walk us through that journey. That's an accomplishment in itself, especially coming from, a Latin American country into the United States with so many startups here.
Yes, I mean, I think there are a lot of these, a lot of different opportunities of different like cups that we participated in, and to be honest, in the end, it does help a lot in just like being able to connect with more international edtech startups. To this day, I don't know how we got selected, but I think it worked well in the end. It's hard to give a specific recommendations of that, but what we ended up doing is we have someone on the team that's like actively looking for these types of opportunities, because it ends up being in a way, um, I mean, free publicity, no, for the company,
Right.
especially at such an early stage where, as much as we would love to invest a lot in marketing, it helps that
Yeah, marketing seems to be last, and it's sometimes the most important thing you can do, especially from a PR standpoint. You mentioned earlier working with BCG, Boston Consulting Group, one of the biggest consulting companies maybe in the world. How did working there first help you in building the company that you have today?
definitely. I think on the one hand, it did help me strengthen a network with like large corporations in Mexico, especially because a lot of the clients I worked with at BCG are now current clients of Vinco. But also, I think I was lucky in the types of programs that I worked in, where a lot of my role was working with these new areas that BCG was developing back then, which was like teams of like data engineers and data scientists. And I was kind of like in the middle of the two areas of like the business side, but then on like kind of like the product team and the data science team. And it really helped me personally develop the skills that, I mean, I have to use today on a daily basis, where a lot of my role is one of my co-founders, she's the CTO, so she looks at all everything tech, and the other one is the COO. and I'm kind of that role in between that I can help connect these two areas and like push the team forward and the product forward. No.
I love that, and I'm going to touch on the networking aspect here in a moment. But um, if you were to give advice to any other entrepreneurs starting an ed tech company in Latin America, what's something that you'd want to give them some heads up on, or maybe like, hey, look at things a little differently? What would be some advice to a new ed tech founder in Latin America?
For me, one of the key things and what I've learned the most, I mean, it does relate to the networking part, but it's just early on. I mean, even before I left BCG, I was already starting to have conversations, as in like if this would be like a viable idea and if it would work out. And within this network, it was like, don't just talk to your friends or the people who like you because they might not be as upfront about it and say like, no, it's a bad idea. Don't go there. You have to talk to people maybe beyond your comfort zone or beyond your direct network, and especially in the education space. I think overall people really are passionate about education, that they want to help you, so they're always eager to connect you with more people that like the education space. uh, so it's always good to get out there and have those conversations to see if it's a viable product, a viable idea, if someone's going to be willing to buy it, no, beyond your like close network of friends, no.
No, I agree with you 100%. Your mom's always going to tell you it's an amazing idea and you can do anything, but sometimes you need people to poke holes in it. It really helps you think outside of the box. I like to close the podcast with a question around networking. Um, what does your network mean to you, and how important has it been in building the company you have right now?
Honestly, really important. And regarding to networking, something that I say a lot whenever I talk to, I don't know, when I think about myself when I was in high school or even middle school, it's like maybe someone you just took like a chemistry class with in eighth grade, no, or I don't know, you'll just like maybe bump into them later on along the road, and like they can become your future client. So I don't know, I just look back and I think it's so important that you're always nice to people and you always want to help out, so that whenever it's like 15, 20, 30 years later, I mean, they might not remember everything about you, but at least it's like, hey, I remember her from class. Like it's like a good positive impression that really helps. So just like being conscious of whatever interaction that you have in life, and I know it's harder at a younger age, but it's just making sure that you have and you give like a good first impression, because you never know what could happen in the future, and you can become like business partners, no.
No, I agree with you 100%. That's really good advice. I look back at the people that I grew up with and what they went on to do, and I have reached out to some of those people to try and help open doors in areas that they've gone on in their careers. And because I the people I reached out to had warm welcome for me because of our past, it's been definitely beneficial. Lizzie, we are super grateful to have you on the show. If somebody wanted to reach out and get a hold of you, what's the best way for them to do that?
Yes, I would say I'm much better at responding emails than I am with LinkedIn. So it's just my name, Lissy at vincohead.com.
Okay, Lizzie, we're going to leave your contact in the description below on this podcast when it airs. And we are super grateful for you coming on the show. Thank you so much for joining us today.
No, thank you so much, Kyle. And it's great that you're doing this. And thank you for having a LATAM startup as well.
Yes, thank you. We hope to have more. So enjoy.